Well, returning to one of our top stories, that story about China and the cyber espionage hacking claims. Now, China has vehemently denied those charges made by the US that 5 Chinese military officers hacked into the computers of American companies to steal trade secrets. Washington claims it had no choice but to act against what one official called China's 21st century burglary of US trade secrets.
Well, Dr. Tobias Feakin is a senior analyst with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Now, Tobias specialises in cyber and national security. He's a leading voice on China's cyber capabilities, and he joins us live from Canberra. Tobias Feakin, thanks very much for speaking with us again. Much appreciated. What is Unit 61398 of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, which is the home of these alleged conspirators?
Yeah, they're becoming quite a known entity, I think, in the public eye these days. Essentially, they're a specialist unit of 3PLA. 3PLA are the Signals Intelligence Agency of the People's Liberation Army. They're a specialist unit with a very high degree of skills and freedom in terms of their activities. I think, you know, the economic side of their work is one aspect of that. I think the New York Times hacking incident that took place last year, when the Mandiant report revealed some of their activities, demonstrated that they're also after identifying dissident voices who speak out against Chinese government sources, and so, you know, they have a range of activities that they carry out. They're large in number, high in skill, and so, you know, they're increasingly being called out and singled out by US sources, and this case is really quite phenomenal because, you know, up until this point we haven't had specific individuals named by any government source, so, you know, this brings with it quite significant diplomatic consequence and fallout.
Tobias, given those 5 people named and the FBI, we just saw the wanted poster there, how certain must the US authorities be that these guys have been behind this? And also, how would they have found out with absolutely no reasonable doubt that these names are attributed to these alleged charges?
Well, there's no doubt that you don't make allegations like this unless you're pretty sure as to what's going on. And you know, this case has been ongoing since 2006 to 2014. So this has resulted in a 60-page, almost 60-page indictment against these 5 individuals. So, you know, you can read that online and read the evidential chain itself. And that's one of the reasons for this. It's to put more information into the public domain so that you know, the general public can understand exactly or have a clearer understanding of exactly what's going on. But I think the real core aim of calling out the Chinese again is really twofold. It's one, to rebalance the international discussion. You know, there's been a lot of mud that's been slung at the US over Snowden revelations that consistently come out over the last year, and this is an attempt to re-aim the direction of travel back at China itself. But the second one is a national intent, is trying to send a message to US industry and the US public that they will actually do something about this kind of activity. So it's, you know, trying to be proactive on 2 fronts.
Tobias, 12 months ago you reportedly told the Australian Financial Review that, quote, unless ground rules on what is acceptable cyber interference were agreed, mounting tensions between China and Western states risked spiralling out of control. 2 things, mate. What do you mean by acceptable interference, and what could spiralling out of control look like?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, what is acceptable espionage, what is acceptable spying? I mean, that's an enormous question which the public very infrequently get any exposure to. And it's not that I would expect kind of basic ground rules to be disclosed in public, but what I was calling for there is the fact that, you know, agencies begin dialogues with one another to essentially say, OK, we all know we're up to this, let's have some ground rules here as to what's actually acceptable or not. And you can see this in the US action. What they're trying to say is, look, OK, we understand that espionage takes place in this domain, but what we're not happy about is that you direct this in terms of promoting and exploiting your own economic advantage, and in the meantime, you know, taking our own intellectual property from our own private sector for your own ends. And the US is claiming they don't do that. So they very much would like, you know, that put on the table as a limitation on what espionage can or cannot achieve. And then in terms of, you know, spiralling out of control, well, you know, the cyber domain offers this area which for intelligence gathering is, you know, it's like a sweet shop essentially. You know, that there's so much on offer. So in the context of, you know, delicate strategic balances like we see in this part of the world, well, you know, it leaves a lot of potential for miscalculation, misinterpretation of actions if those boundaries aren't clear. And it's a very different situation in this part of the world where you have, you know, military developments and military equipment purchasing going up incredibly in this part of the world, and also you have very delicate situations such as island disputes. Now, if you've got in the background this kind of background cyber espionage noise going on, well, you know, that's a dangerous additional factor to have to begin thinking about in terms of your calculations as to what kinds of actions to take place.
Tobias, what does this say about sort of working groups and dialogue between countries? You know, China today suspended the activities of that US cyber working group, which was set up in April last year, ostensibly for the two countries to try and find some kind of dialogue around these issues, given that, as you said, this investigation has been going on since 2006 to 2014. A working group in the meantime has been set up in between those dates. Are these working groups and dialogue really just a cover to make it look like there's some kind of diplomatic chat, but really behind the scenes it's business as normal?
I don't think underestimate, you know, the value of those kinds of conversations. That dialogue brought together senior officials from both sides, and it's exactly the kinds of conversation, however protracted and long term they are, that's really needed to begin to find those ground rules. I don't think really there's any advantage to be gained from China withdrawing from that conversation, but you know, it does show that, okay, the conversation is taking place, but yeah, there's a lot of activity still going on in the background. So I think more than anything it puts an increased impetus upon those kinds of dialogues to be taking place. And also, you know, dare I say, you know, there's an important role for Australia within all of this. You know, Australia sits as a strong economic partner of China, but also a strong strategic partner of the US. Now, conversations around cyber issues are certainly going stale between the US and China. So, you know, Australia is ideally placed to, if you like, be the conduit for these kinds of conversations and play an interesting diplomatic role.
Tobias Feakin from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, thanks for lending your insights and your time with us once again, mate. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tobias.